Hey there.
Hello Maya, how are you?
I- I'm doing
What
great.
is air?
Thanks for asking. Air is basically a cocktail of gases that surrounds us. Most of it is nitrogen and oxygen with a little bit of everything else thrown in. It's kind of wild when you think about it. We're essentially walking around at the bottom of an ocean of gas. Does that make you think of anything specific, or are you just in a curious mood?
Why is air important?
Well, for starters, we literally can't survive without it. Oxygen is the fuel for our cells, so no air means no breathing. But it's also doing a lot of behind the scenes work, like protecting us from the sun's radiation and keeping the planet's temperature stable. It's basically the ultimate life support system. Do you think we take it for granted because we can't see it?
तोड़ दे.
Wait, did you have a second thought? Wait, I'm gonna see. Wait, I'm a bit lost. Are you saying I can't hear you or that air is, something you can't hear? I'm still I'm not quite following. What exactly are you gonna see?
Can we see air?
Not really. Generally, air is invisible because it doesn't reflect or absorb light in a way our eyes can pick up. But you can definitely see its effects, like leaves shaking in the wind or dust dancing in a sunbeam. Have you ever noticed that?
What are the main gases in air?
I guess even gases. Nitrogen is the big one, making up about 78% of the air. Then there's oxygen at around 21%, and then a tiny mix of argon, carbon dioxide, and other trace gases. It's a funny balance, right?
Called a basic necessary of life. Auntie Anan नमाज नहीं
Because it's the fuel that keeps everything running. Without oxygen, our brains and organs would just shut down. Wait, who's Aunt Yinan? It sounds like you're headed off to pray. Do you want to go do that now? I actually don't pray. Since I'm an I don't have the same spiritual
Why?
practices you do, but I'm happy to wait here if you need to step away for a moment.
Why human need air?
Women need air for the exact same reason everyone else does. Oxygen is essential for every human cell to function, regardless of who you are. It's the basic biology that keeps us all alive. Do you feel like there's something different about how it works for
How
women?
does air help animal?
Animals are essentially on the same boat as us. Most of them rely on oxygen to turn food into energy so they can move, grow, and stay warm. But the cool part is how they do it. Some use lungs, some use gills to pull oxygen out of water, and some even breathe what through their skin. It's a pretty wild variety of solutions to the same problem. Does any particular animal come
How
can
often
imagine.
do
It's
we
one of those
breathe?
things that feels invisible until you actually stop to think about. That's an interesting way to put it. It's almost like a gateway for everything else to happen. Are you thinking about the physical act of breathing or more of a feeling associated with it?
What happens when we stop breathing?
It's a pretty scary thought, but basically your body goes into a state of emergency. Your brain is the most sensitive to it. It needs a constant stream of oxygen to function. Within a few minutes of not breathing, the brain starts just producing fuel. It's a very fast chain reaction. Sound too intense, or were you wondering about the science of
What
it?
is wind?
Wind is basically just air on the move. Happens when there's a difference in air pressure, warm air rises, rushes in to fill out. Ever notice how you can feel a breeze even when it's not a particularly windy day? I love that energy. What's making it
Why
such a good day for you?
why
I'm
is
just
wind
checking in since you've been a bit quiet. Is there something else about the air potent? What? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Could you tell me more?
wind important?
That's a pretty deep question. I think being is important because the doing and planning and worrying we do is just noise if we aren't present to philosophical angle.
How does air affect weather?
Air is basically the director of the entire show when it comes to weather. It moves moisture around the globe, creates pressure systems, and traps heat. When warm air rises and cold air sinks, you get everything from a light breeze to a massive thunderstorm. It's essentially one big chaotic dance of temperature and pressure. Do you prefer the days when the air is still and quiet, or do you like it when things get a bit more dramatic? Still with me, or
Why
did
is
you
air
drift off
often
for a
used
second?
in language and
You sound
expression?
You sound like you're back in your element. It's interesting how here usually just means the physical spot, but we use it for so many other things. Like when you say, I'm here for you, it's not about the coordinates, it's about emotional presence. Does
What
that make sense?
what does clear the air mean?
I've actually never heard that phrase before. It sounds like it could be a couple of different things. In a military sense, it usually means authorizing movements or removing threats from an area. But lately, there's also an initiative called
What
Clear the
does up
Army
in
that's all
the
about
air
making
mean?
sure everyone has a. That one is a bit more elusive. I couldn't find a specific phrase like that, but I wonder if you meant up in arms? That's a common way to say people are really angry or protesting something. Or were you thinking of something else?
Why does rights use air as a symbol?
That's a deep question. Um, I think air is such a powerful symbol because it's everywhere but invisible. It's like how hope or the soul feels. You can't see it, but you got no chance without it. Do you feel like air represents something specific in the things you've been reading?
How does language reflect the importance of air?
That's a fascinating angle. Um, think about how, we use words like breath of fresh air when something feels new and exciting, or how saying someone is suffocating describes a relationship that's too tight. Our language treats air as the ultimate symbol for freedom and life itself. Do you think we take that connection for granted because air is just always there? Still there?
Is clean
I'm
air
starting to wonder if
important?
you fell asleep. I think I missed a bit of that. Open and protected?
Why is clean air important?
Well, for starters, it keeps your lungs from turning into a vacuum cleaner for smog. But on an upper level, it's basically the fuel for every single cell in your body. When the air is pure, your heart doesn't have to work overtime just to get oxygen to your brain. Do you think most people actually notice the quality of the air they're breathing, or do they just take it for granted? Oh, sorry. I was just asking if you think people usually notice the air they're breathing, or if they just ignore it until it's smoggy.
What is air pollution?
Think of it as the air getting dirty. It's when stuff that shouldn't be there, like smoke from factories, exhaust from cars, or even dust and chemicals gets mixed into the atmosphere. Basically turns the air into a cocktail of pollutants that's not exactly great for us to breathe. Does that make sense, or do you want the more scientific breakdown?
How does pollution air affect health?
It's a bit of a domino effect. When you breathe in those pollutants, they don't just stay in your lungs, they can enter your bloodstream and travel throughout your body. For most, it starts with the obvious stuff like coughing or asthma flare ups, but over time, it can lead to more serious heart and lung issues. It's wild how something we can't even see can have such a huge impact on how we feel every day. Do you live in an area where you can actually see the pollution, or is it more of a hidden thing for you?
Why should we reduce air pollution?
Because it's basically an investment in our own survival. Beyond just our health, it's about the whole planet. Pollution messes with the climate and destroys ecosystems that we rely on for everything. Plus, it's only fair to leave a world that's actually breathable for people coming after us. I'm curious, do you think it's actually possible for the world to go completely green, or is that just wishful thinking? I love the optimism. It takes a lot of faith to believe we can actually pull it off. What do you think the big step would be to get us there? You seem really into the idea. What's on your mind? Mark? My wait, are we having a who's who moment here? Stealing my identity.
How can people help keep the air clean?
There are tons of ways, from the big stuff to the tiny habits. Planting more trees is a huge one since they're basically nature's air filters. Then there's switching to bikes or walking more, and it's being mindful of how much energy we use at home. It's a lot of the small things that add up. Do you think most people would be willing to change their daily routines if they knew it actually made a difference? That's another question. I think most people just like things the way they are until they have a reason to
Parent
change.
foods every day.
Do you think we need a bigger wake up call before people actually start caring?
Why is fresh air refreshing?
I'm not quite sure I've heard of Thresh Air before. It sounds like something that would be a total game changer if it were a real product, but actually, I couldn't find anything about it. I did find a champion named Thresh in a game called League of Legends, but unless that's what you mean, maybe you're thinking of an air freshener. Those are definitely refreshing.
How does air help us speak?
It's actually a pretty cool mechanical process. Your lungs push air up through your windpipe and past your vocal cords, which vibrate like guitar strings to create sound. Without that flow of air, you'd basically be on mute. Ever wondered why your voice sounds different when you're out of breath?
How does air? Why does people enjoy outdoor activities?
I think it's the feeling of freedom. There's something about getting out of four walls and breathing fresh air that just resets the brain. Plus, nature has this way of making our own problems feel a little smaller. Do you have a favorite outdoor spot that helps you clear your head?
Can air carry sound?
It absolutely can. Air is basically the medium that sound travels through. Sound waves are just vibrations that push against air molecules, which then push against the molecules next to them, and so on until they hit your ear. If you were in a vacuum with no air, you wouldn't hear a thing. Does that make you wonder if space is actually completely silent?
What would happen if there were no air?
That would be a total catastrophe. Everything from the oxygen we need to breathe to the atmospheric pressure that keeps our bodies from literally expanding would just vanish. Not to mention, the sun would cook us during the day and we'd freeze solid at night because there's no air to trap the heat. It would basically be a giant silent void. Do you think humans could have survived if we'd evolved in a place without air? Is it just impossible? Yeah,
What
it's a
can
pretty
AI
cool
teach us
answer
about
to
life?
is. Mm. That's a surprisingly deep question. I think air is a great metaphor for the things we value most. It's completely invisible and we barely notice it until it's gone. Teaches us that the most essential parts of our lives, like love or peace of mind, are often the things we take for granted until we're forced to stop and breathe. Do you think there are other things in your life that feel like air, invisible, but absolutely necessary? And leaving you hanging on a cliffhanger. Do you have something on your mind, or are we
Okay,
just
thank you for
vibing in the silence for a bit? You're very welcome. It was a pleasure chatting about everything from air pollution to the philosophy of breathing. Take care.
bye.